Season 5 of Call of Duty just dropped, and with that there are many changes to the game, so today I have for you the absolute no best settings that you should be using if you want to actually enjoy the update. With the first settings being in the account and network, so you want to keep everything the same on here, but I'd highly recommend for you guys to turn off the dismember and the gore effects. This makes some people's game crash, and just overall your game should load things a little bit faster and better if you do have that off. For the interface settings, a lot of people do skip over these, so I like to go over these first, and it's very important stuff over here. So for your HUD bounds, you want to make sure this is as tight as possible, since everything tighter is typically a little bit better. Just makes it so you don't have to look all the way to the top left to see the minimap. Speaking of the minimap, you want to have that rotation on, and then make sure it's on the square so you can see a little bit more of it. And then if we go down over to the crosshair, you want to make sure this is on the static, and then you want to basically do show more, and you want to make sure that crosshair dot's on. Center dot scale larger. If you're on like a bigger TV, like 50-inch plus, then I would put it on the largest. A lot of pro players do like default, and a lot like the largest, so just whichever one, you know, floats your own boat. The crosshair spread, make sure that's on. Crosshair opacity, I like to have that on 100, and then for me, I like to make it a nice blue. Kind of stands out the most and just makes it so I can have the best centering possible. And then for the weapon information and all the visibility down here, just keep this on 100%. And then you basically want to make the minimap a little bit bigger, which to do so, we are basically gonna you know, expand the multiplayer HUD, tab over to the visuals, and then you want to go to the scale and make this 120. Given you can make it 130, 140, really doesn't matter. Some pro players do like it on 150. Just do whatever you like, but I do recommend to make it a little bit bigger than that default size. For the other colors on here, you can basically customize everything of, like, you know, the color that the enemies show up on. For me, I just like to keep everything kind of on the default. And then the color filter, though, if you want to make everything the most vibrant as possible, make sure that's on the filter too, and your color filter target is on both, and then just max out both of those intensities, and this should make your game look astronomically better. Everything should just load better, and you're going to be able to, you know, actually take more advantage of all the information on your screen. Do you want everything in Call of Duty without having to play the game? Then you should check out my long-term sponsor, Guapsi. Guapsi is a team of real players that will load onto your account to legitimately grind anything that you wish, and this goes for all the recent Call of Duties and many other games. They will even get you iridescent so you can flex all the cool rewards. Seriously, there's no risk involved because they don't use an unlock tool. They legitimately play in your account, and I've been with them for a long time and haven't seen a single negative review. And so if you want to save your time and energy, check out guapsi.com. Now for the audio settings, there is an audio pack that you can buy. This late into the game, I don't really recommend buying it unless you're trying to maximize, like, you know, the footstep depth within the game. There is a personalized pack where it kind of scans your ears, and I just don't think that's really worth it whatsoever. For the frequency intensities, so for the left channel and the right channel, this is typically what most players are going to be using if they want to maximize those footsteps. If you don't really notice a difference and then you start to like change it and you start getting confused, then I literally would just keep everything on default. But if you are using like a gaming headset, this should be the best for you. You want to keep the left channel and the right channel exactly the same. If you do find this video helpful whatsoever, make sure you guys drop a sub or a like and a comment, you know, vouching for the video. And then you basically want to go over to the global audio mix. Make sure this is on the sucker punch or the the headphone bass boost. Just use both of them and just find the one that's best for you. Most people do like that sucker punch, and that should wrap it up for the audio settings over here, except for make sure your microphone volume is 100 so you're the loudest one in the lobby. Now this is going to be a video for console and PC and controller and everything, but like keyboard. So if you're looking for keybinds, I can't really show you any of that, but I do use an Xbox Elite V2 controller. This is a controller I've been using for a very long time. I just really like the paddles on the back. A little bit of an expensive controller, but it allows me to take advantage of that omni movement. If you don't have a fancy controller, what you can do is go over to the button layout and then basically change this over to the bumper jumper tactical. Should allow you to be able to jump and drop shot and things while also still having very good aim. If you play on default, that also works, but you're typically going to have to play claw. And then if you are curious of what this orange thing is on my controller, so this is basically a control freak. Makes it so I don't have to like move the stick as much to be able to have it register on the screen, and I can make more like fine adjustments and get better grip. And not all pro players use it, but a decent amount of pros do use control freaks, and so I do think it's worth it. And I'll have a link down below if you want to check them out and use code CBAS for a nice little discount. Been using them since I was like 12 years old or 13. Now for the sensitivities, if you are playing Warzone, you typically want to have a higher one. I see a lot of players play on like 1.8 plus, like all the way up into like 2.2. But on multiplayer, you don't really need a high sense because the map is so tiny. You just need to have like very good centering, and so a lot of your sensitivity is for your centering, not necessarily for your aim, because if you're on controller you have aim assist, so you can really get used to any sensitivity. But when you're moving around the map trying to, you know, have that good crosshair placement where an enemy could be, It's a little bit easier to be consistent with a lower sense. The lowest I would ever go is like 1.42. A lot of pro players will play on like 1.55 and 1.65. I think Selenium though plays on like 1.8, and so you kind of move around to your liking. Just don't really think about it too much, or else you start tweaking, because you can literally get used to any sensitivity on the game. And then for everything on here, you can swap the bumpers with the triggers, so then you're hitting a bumper like a button rather than having to pull down the trigger. This controller and a lot of other like, you know, advanced controllers, they have trigger lock, so all you have to do is like barely hit it and then it registers on the screen. And so I don't really need to flip those bumpers over there. For the bumper ping, if you're playing Warzone or you just like to ping, obviously make that on off. I just don't really play too much Warzone, so I don't necessarily need to have that on. I think in ranked play, it's a little bit scummy to do so. Controller vibration, if you're used to this on, it's going to feel super weird with it off, but you'll be 10 times the player if you have it on off. Just less things shaking in your hand should lead to better aim. For the dead zone inputs, I like to have my left stick min at 1, just so my guy doesn't accidentally walk forward, but it's still also very responsive. For the left stick max, so I have it at 65, so all I have to do is move that right stick 65% of the way if I want to get to max movement speed. The lowest I've seen anyone go is about 45, and then the highest I see anyone go is like 75. So you can go into a private match and just kind of move around and find the one that you like. But again, you can really get used to any of them. I just found myself being the most consistent with 65. For the right stick min, I have it on 5. I should honestly increase it a little bit or just get a new controller, because I have crazy stick drift. If you notice yourself having to get up to like 6, 7, 8 and you know, ahead of that, then I would consider getting a new controller, just because the game isn't going to be as responsive for you. But in a way, it does help you lock onto players sometimes, because then if you tend to like, you know, move your stick while you're aiming too much, then this can kind of, you know, counteract that, because if you have a very sensitive one, then you might like flick off the enemy too much. And even on a brand new controller, the lowest I will go is on 3, and for that exact reason. I feel a little bit more stable and consistent with a 5 on there. And then for the right stick max, we're going to have that 99, and then left trigger, right trigger, we're going to have that on 0. So right when I hit the trigger, even without the trigger, you know, stops, it's still going to register on the game. It's just some people can like trigger finger faster when they, you know, hit the bumpers, especially with like, you know, the semi-automatic weapons. But that should wrap it up for the controller side of things. Now if we go over to the aiming, you can basically go over to the sensitivity multiplier. You can adjust that to your liking. For me, I just keep everything on default. Just makes it a little bit more consistent for me. For the aiming advanced settings, we're going to expand this one. Going to go over to ADS sensitivity transition timing. So if you do have a multiplier, like maybe your ADS multiplier is on 85, like 0.85, that means when you are ADS, it's going to be 85% of the speed of, you know, of your default sensitivity, but only when you're aiming. If you have it on gradual, it's going to gradually get down to that. Because I just keep on everything on 1.0, it doesn't really matter. I'm just going to have it on instant. Gradual means it will gradually get down to that 0.85 or whatever multiplier you set it on. Instant just means the second you start to ADS, it slows down. Really personal preference. Again, a lot of pros use the instant and a lot of use the gradual, so just use whichever one you like. When I did used to have the 0.85, then I would have it on gradual, and I would say I was pretty accurate. Like, I didn't really miss on the game too much. For the aim response curve type, I would recommend the dynamic. Again, there is a couple very good players that use linear, but majority of pros, I would say 90% of them do play on dynamic. And so if maybe you might be an outlier, but most of the time dynamic should be good for everybody. And that's one of the reasons why everyone has such good aim in these newer Call of Duties compared to the other ones. We used to never be able to, you know, swap this. And then you actually can go over and you can edit that. So if you're on dynamic and you start lowering this, you get less aim assist, and it kind of brings it closer down to linear supposedly. I've seen Havoc, he was number 1 in this game, and the other Call of Duties occasionally, and his was 0.92. And so sometimes you do want to reduce the amount of aim assist, just because sometimes it does get a little bit too sticky. If you want to customize the sensitivity per zoom, you can do it down here, but I just keep everything on 1.0. I just noticed myself being the most consistent and the absolute best when I have it on there. And then here's like the ADS sensitivity multiplier. The focus is only if you're holding your breath, just so you guys know. For the target aim assist, obviously you want that on, and then you can keep everything else the same on there. For the sprint assist, so this is where things get a little bit tricky at times. If you have it on this, your guys gonna automatically tack sprint, and then make sure you have the sprint assist on for the backwards and the sideways. So the second you hit that left stick forward, your guys gonna automatically start tack sprinting. But if there's somebody running and you're tack sprinting, the person who is running is going to be able to fire their gun faster. And so a lot of the time when you're tack sprinting, it does get you killed, which is why you only see a lot of people use this in Warzone, because you're constantly tack sprinting. But you see a lot of people on regular multiplayer just play with like it on, so then they automatically sprint. Then they have to click down that left stick if they want to tack sprint. For me though, I just hate having to like mash my controller and the life of the controller lasts longer, so I just have it on tactical sprint assist, especially because this game is such a bang out, and that's kind of what I recommend for everybody in here. For the mantle assist, make sure this is on off. You want to be in control of everything that you're doing on the game. You don't want the game to automatically mantle things for you, and so make sure you guys do, you know, click on show more and then turn everything off on there, and then make sure your mantle assist angle is on tight. Remember, everything tighter is going to be typically the best. Then for the crouch assist, we're going to have that on off, and then make sure you guys do you know, show more, and then make sure these things are on off. Corner slice, literally just visual. It might look like you can lean around corners, but from the other POV, it's literally the same exact thing. So if you like corner slice, you can have it on. I don't personally like it, just I don't like when things are moving unnecessarily on my game. For the slide slash dive behavior, if you don't find yourself really ever dolphin diving, literally just have it on slide only. Just make sure it's on hybrid or slide only. If you have it on any of these other ones, there's going to be a weird delay when you go to slide or do anything on the game, and so this removes those delays because the game is not, it's not wondering if you're holding to slide or tapping to slide, and so this will, you know, lock it in. So the second you hit the slide button, your guy's going to slide. There's no delay. Hybrid allows you to hold down that left stick and click the slide button if you want to be able to, you know, do any of those maneuvers. And I like the dolphin dive. You can dolphin dive on the ledges and kind of get around the map sometimes faster and stuff like that, but never really want to use it in a gunfight. 99% of the time you will die. For the sprint to restore, it's super important. Make sure this is on. Same with the slide maintain sprint. Make sure that's on. For the parachute, automatic behavior off. Mantle cancels reload off. Movement advanced settings, you want to keep basically everything. Oh well, yeah, you know you want to turn off ground and mantle, so you can copy these things. You want the tactical sprint activation on single tap run, so if you just click that your left stick once, your guys get a tactical sprint. Even if you have automatic tactical sprint, there's still times where if you're crouching, you need to like run forward and tac sprint, so you got to click down that left stick. And so this is just going to make it a little bit more responsive, so that's super important. It's actually banned in the pro league because they just make it, they say it takes away a lot of that skill gap. Plunging underwater, I like to have it on free. Sprinting door bash on. For the vehicle advanced settings, you can just keep everything the same on there. For the combat, there's not too much in here, but you know, you can just basically copy all of this stuff. I like to prioritize the Diddy every single time, so you know, I'm assuming you guys want to do the same exact thing. For the combat advanced settings, we're going to go over here and switch this to prioritize interact. If you're mid gunfight and you're running out of ammo, it's going to be faster to pick up a gun off the floor rather than reload your gun. Or if you kill the guy, you can literally run over his body, and as his gun's falling from, like, you know, his position when he's dead, it's falling, you can pick the gun out of the air and then get ready for that next gunfight instead of having to reload. This is going to make it so it prioritizes picking things up off the floor. Super important in Warzone. If you're not used to this, you're going to absolutely hate it, but I highly recommend it. Prioritize reload is also a super good one, so just get used to one of these, and most of you guys will probably like the prioritize interact. And then that should wrap up everything over on the combat advanced settings, and then you guys can basically, you know, keep all of these things the same. And that should wrap it up for all of the controller settings. Now for the graphics, if you are on console, you're not going to have access to all of these, but I would still stay tuned. I'll quickly go through it because some things will apply to you. I'm going to keep everything over here the same. You do want full screen exclusive, but because I'm streaming and things, the full screen exclusive is a little bit annoying, so I like the full screen borderless just because I am streaming. For the NVIDIA reflex low latency, for me, I get more FPS, about 300 if I have it on. For the eco mode, we have that on custom. VSync for the menus and the gameplay off. Custom frame limit, you want to make sure you limit yourself in the menu so your computer and stuff isn't working harder in the menus than it needs to, and then in game you can just max it out. And then for the reduce render resolution optimal, pause game rendering off, and then you guys can copy all of these things on here. Apologies if I'm going a little bit fast or too slow. There's people that want me to go slow, and there's people that want me to go faster, so you always can put the video on 0.75 speed or, like, you know, 1.25 speed. And then for the render resolution, some Call of Duties you would want to lower this or maybe raise it. On this one, just keep it at 100. Dynamic resolution off. Upscale slash sharpening, majority of players do like the fidelity. Some people do add these just so they get more FPS on their computer, but fidelity is going to give you the clearest game. And then you actually can do show more, and then you can basically increase the strength of the fidelity. And for me, I really like it on 100, but some people do like to have it on like 50 or 60, so check it out for yourself. But everyone here should probably, well, most people are going to like the fidelity at 100. And then make sure these are on off. VRAM scale target, I have it on 90. If you're using your computer for like other things like YouTube and lots of other stuff, then you might want to have it on 80. For the variable rate shading, I have mine on off. Texture resolution, I only have it on high because I still get 300 FPS when I do have it on high, and so might as well make my game look better for the stream. But if I'm not streaming, then I will have it on low. Texture filter anisotropic low. Depth of field off. Detail quality low. Particle resolution very low. Bullet impacts give more FPS with this off, but sometimes when I'm making a class setup video, I need to see where I'm shooting, for the video, so I like to have it on. Persistent effects off. Shader quality low. On-demand texture streaming, you're gonna have it on optimized, and then I just keep that at 32. Download limits off, and this actually reduced a lot of my packet burst. Local texture streaming quality low. Shadow quality on, I like to have it on very low. See, whenever there's updates, it kind of resets my game. It's weird. For the screen space shadows, if you want your camos to look better, have it on high. If you don't care about that, then I would put it on off. Occlusion and screen space lighting off. Same reasons for the camos on the screen space reflections. I like to have mine high because I want the camos to look good. Static reflection quality low. Tessellation off. Volumetric quality, I need to have this on low, but the game actually looks so much different when you have it on high. Like on Vault, you start seeing crazy lights that you usually would never see, and honestly is kind of cool, but I would just have it on low so you can see a little bit better. Deferred physics quality off. Weather grid volumes off. Water quality on the off. Now over to the view settings, we are going to turn off the motion reduction preset. Same with the anachrophobia, unless you don't like those spiders. Field of view, if you're on Warzone, you want to have it on 115 to like 120 because the map is so big. You actually can get a lot more information. Multiplayer, the maps aren't that big, and the bigger the FOV, then the smaller the targets are going to be, so it's easier to actually hit your shots and have better accuracy on the lower FOVs, but you don't want it too low to where you can't really see that much of the map. So for me, 103 is very good. The highest I've ever seen a pro player go is 105, and a lot of players off optic, they play on like 97, 98, and so that kind of says something. ADS field of view affected. Weapon field of view default. Third person field of view 90. Vehicle field of view default. For the motion blurs, you want these on off. It's going to make your game look so much better. And then just turn down the least movement. And you know what, I think that is going to wrap it up for inverted flashbang. I have it on off, but if you have that on, it makes your screen black so you don't get absolutely flashbang IRL whenever you get flashbang in the game. If there's anything I missed, let me know down in the comments, but I think we covered everything. And again, if you find this video helpful and you want more videos like this, make sure you hit the subscribe button, especially if you're prepping for the new Call of Duty. We're going to be going absolutely crazy over there. And I hope you guys all enjoy the update. Hopefully there's no bugs and it works perfectly fine for you. Deuces.